This is a Jmix exclusive.
I don't know if you've seen any of my content, but basically what I do is I interview people that work with Tupac, and then in doing that, I have them tell their story. That way, because I know that Tupac connected a lot of people, and there's a lot of people like the Tupac fans. They like to support the people that work with Pac, and I know that you work with Pac. So the reason that I'm preferencing this is there's going to be some, obviously some Tupac questions. And I don't want you to think that I don't have any working respect for all the other stuff like the Boys to Men and, the Keith Washington stuff. So please don't take that as me just dismissing that part of your career. I don't dismiss that part of your career.
I do. I know those people. I mean, I don't get it, man. I mean, I haven't heard anything from Boys to Men lately.
Well, that's true.
Or Keith. Now Keith Keith was like a friend of mine even before he got a record deal. You know what I mean? So it's different. Me and him are good friends, but I just for me it's an unbelievable experience to every day for the past 2.5 decades almost to randomly walk down the street or see his picture or hear him in somebody's car or wherever I go. I don't have that with any other artist, and it's almost a bizarre existence. You know what I mean?
Did you ever think in a million years that he would be that big and his music would live as long as it has?
Did he ever think that? That's the real funny part. You know what I mean?
That's a good point, because a lot of people I talk to, they say, he just knew it. He just knew that he was going to be this big thing, but I don't see how anybody could know how long that their legacy would be.
I don't think anybody could imagine being as famous as he became after he passed away. And I because I don't think very few artists have. You think, okay, well, maybe I've become something major, but I mean, decades and decades. I was dealing with somebody who was, very proud of the fact that they had a song on the radio now, and they came at me with I have a song on the radio right now. What about you? What are you doing? And my response was, some of my music has been playing on the radio all over the world for the past 25 years, and so I understand and appreciate your joy in having achieved that, but I don't understand. A lot of my problem is I don't understand the attack against me. Why not be proud of yourself and let me be proud of you instead of saying what have I done? But in a sense, I do understand it. It's not that I haven't done anything since Tupac, and like we were discussing earlier, it's not that I hadn't worked with other artists. It's just Tupac is such a unique phenomenon in the history of the music industry that nothing that I've done is as relevant. You know what I mean? Or continues to be as relevant. He reminds me of like the Beatles or something. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's just unbelievable.
The impact is huge.
Yeah, and for somebody who there with him, it's you don't get it. I remember back maybe like a little. Well, no, at the same time when I was working with Pac, my neighbors was John Frusciante, the guitar player for the Chili Peppers, and their album Blood, Sex, Sugar, Magic was out, and we had a garage in between our houses, and we'd go, me and Anthony and Flea would play ping pong there. You know, a lot of times, not every day, and then sometimes we go to this club called the Anti Club, and you know, do punk rock. I love punk rock, but I'd look at those guys and go, "You guys have no idea how major you are, do you? You're none." You know what I mean? It was so funny, and so I think that when you're in the midst of something, like when you, like, Tupac was, he was my friend, you know what I mean? And so was Stretch, and so was Big Syke, and so was Yak, and so was these guys that passed away, and it's hard on me, my friends passing away. But I think when you're so close to it, you can't see what other people see. And so I understand it theoretically or academically. I go, wow, yeah, I don't get it. I don't even know any other artists that have been as much of a phenomenon as he has been. And I know a lot of people in the music industry, but it's all, for me, it's just weird. You know what I mean? And I think the weirdest part is what has it made me think, God, that nobody really knows. I mean, people in the industry know, you know what I mean? But as far as the average person, no one knows. So I could just walk down the street and, you know, just enjoy life and pretty much be normal without having to deal with the ramifications of that level of fame, I guess.
Do you find yourself, because the bar's set so high with that timeless music, do you find yourself feeling or thinking that you can never reach that pinnacle again?
You know, with me, in all honesty, I don't look at it as if it's me who reached a goal. When I look at me and Pac, I look at like a guy who had been used to dealing with hip-hop producers who liked rapping to R&B, who looked at me as an R&B guy, who looked at me as a guy who could actually play piano, who actually knew when singers were in key, who actually made records, and who was actually working. I mean, he would just brag all the time that, man, I got people in my crew that's working with Boys to Men. You know what I mean? Because I had done I did a remix of Boys to Men's "Thank You" and played it for him before I even turned it into the record label, and he, you know, he listened to it and he dug it. And he was like, man, who is that singing? And I was like, Boys to Men. And I guess for me, it was just, you know, I a lot of dance remixes for like George Clinton and even him. I remixed "Keep Your Head Up" and Papa's song, and that's how I met him. But I for him, he just thought I was just some great, phenomenal record producer. And I'm like, I'm really just a dance remixer, you know what I mean? But I do know how to play piano. I do know when people are in key, and I do know how to mix records as well as play the music and everything, because I hung out with my brother, who was doing a lot of great stuff, John Nettlesbey, and he did "Show Me" by Howard Hewitt, and he did "Kissing You" by Keith Washington, and he did a lot of. It seemed like every song he did went number one. So it just kind of threw me in an environment where I'm hanging out with some of the top people in the industry, and my curiosity and love of music caused me to be there, sit there, and learn from some of the best how to really, really make records. And I think that Tupac really appreciated that, being surrounded a lot of times by DJs or sometimes people would come to the studio and they had never been in a recording studio before, but they'd done a dope track. They had no idea that they had to take all the stuff that they did and lay it down separately and sync it up to tape and all of these things that are just technical aspects of producing a record. And so he just loved having me there because, and at times, some of the people, the engineers who were there, weren't up to par. You know what I mean? So he loved having me around because he was like, man, he knows how to play the music. He knows how to tell me when the singer is in key or off key. He knows how to mix it, and he knows how to do everything. You know what I mean? On a professional level. And so a lot of times at that time in hip hop, a lot of it was just DJs and with turntables, or somebody sampling somebody's record and putting a drum beat underneath it, and that was a hip hop producer, but they really had no experience in actual playing music, actually knowing what's on key, and actually being in a studio and mixing high quality records. And so he wanted me there a lot of times to do the music, but a lot of times to help other producers and engineers who weren't up to par do their thing so that his music would come out, professional.
But that was a fantastic answer. Speaking of coming up, producing music, remixing songs, to take it back a little bit, who inspired you musically? Who did you come up listening to and make you love music?
Well, I can say that the first record that I ever just fell in love with was "Come Get to This" by Marvin Gaye, but I was so young that I didn't know what he was talking about. But I just loved the way it just the whole thing sounded, and I actually was a kid and just kept playing that record over and over again, and that's what caused me to fall in love with music. I was on the south side of Chicago. That's where I was born and raised, and my grandmother just wanted to teach me how to play piano, So and she passed away, and I loved my grandmother, and so when she passed away, I just kept every day playing piano, So I would say that it's as far as playing and being a musician, it was my love of my grandmother that caused me to after she passed away, to keep playing every day and practicing every day. And as far as music is concerned, I would have to say, it'd have to be music like Marvin Gaye and just the old R&B soul music, you know what I mean? But Marvin Gaye in particular, I love that song, And the funny part about it is that a friend of mine, Norman Whitfield Jr., is the son of Norman Whitfield, who wrote all those great songs like "Heard It Through the Grapevine" and "Papa Was a Rolling Stone" and "Love Don't Live Here Anymore." But he was a friend of mine, and I hung out and I did a lot of remixes with him as the engineer. And the whole reason I got involved with Tupac is because, of course, sitting in the studio with him, watching him engineer, I learned and I was curious, and he taught me how to engineer. And he was mixing a lot of the Tupac stuff, And one night he just called me and told me that he'd been in the studio for days. The deadline to turn this song in was tomorrow, and he needed it mixed. And could I come and mix it, because he knew, since he taught me how to mix, that I knew how to mix records. So I said, sure, and I came and I mixed, and I had no idea who Tupac was. I knew who Digital Underground was, and so I ended up mixing the song I Get Around. And they didn't put my name on it, because, I mean, it wasn't mine. I wasn't really supposed to be the one mixing it, but I just ended up being the one who mixed it. And when it came out, I was like, wow, man, I'm the one who really sat there all night while you went home and showered and mixed the record, and yet you didn't put my name on it. I said, don't worry about it, man. We'll let you remix his next record. And so I got, the next record was Keep Your Head Up. And I told him, I said, I don't want to hear the original mix. I don't know who this guy Tupac is, you know what I mean? I just give me the Simpy code on one side of the DAT and the vocals on the other side. And I listened to it, and the beginning of the second verse, when he says, I remember Marvin Gaye used to sing to me, had me feeling like black was the way to be, you know? That, I listened to that over and over and reminisced on why I first started loving music, because of that Marvin Gaye Comes Get to This song. And that's what made me think, man, this is R&B right here. So I just, on the Vibe Tribe remix, Keep Your Head Up, I just made it an R&B track, you know, with a bunch of chord progressions, and everything about it was R&B. And so that when you asked about what inspired me and what initially made me love working with Tupac, it was he said that, and that was something that I felt as well. So I just loved working with him. And then when the record label loved it, they told me that my remix of Keep Your Head Up was the first like rap song that they wanted to put on 94.7 The Wave back when it was smooth jazz. You know? And I was like, wow, that's heavy. But so they wanted me to remix his next song called Papa's Song, because I didn't use any samples. I mean, they loved the music, but they really loved the fact that they didn't have to pay a whole bunch of money to clear samples. You know what I mean? So they said, hey, man, why don't you remix his next song, Papa's Song? And while I was doing the Vibe Tribe remix of Papa's Song, I had finished my mix and was packing my equipment up to leave the studio. And that's when Pac and those guys from Thug Life and Stretch and those guys from Live Squad were walking in the studio. And I was just walking by them, and then the engineer came running out to me in my car and said, hey, man, you know, these guys use a lot of samples, and you have a sampler, and I kind of don't know how to work, you know, with that type of music, or do samples or loop them, all that stuff like that. Could you help these guys out, do their remix of Papa's Song? And I said, sure. So I came back in and set all my equipment and stuff. And Stretch basically was the one producing. So I plugged a turntable into my sampler and just looked at Stretch. I mean, he was tall. He was like 6'7". Stretch was huge, but he was like again, he was just, both he and Pac were just the greatest guys, you know. And so Stretch started putting a bunch of records on, like underground hip-hop loop records on, to try to hear which loop he liked. When he found one he liked, he said, yeah, that one right there. So I would just sample it into the sampler and loop it up and get the tempo and go, okay, so what's next? And I guess I did it so fast that, you know, I heard his voice behind me say, yo, this nigga really know how to flip his shit. You know what I mean? And I recognized the voice from the, and I turned around and said, okay, so this is Tupac. So I looked at him and said, yeah, hey, what's up, man? And he was like, hey, man, why don't you work with us, man? Why don't you come back, you know, every day and work with us on some music, man, because you know how to do your thing. You got equipment and everything. And I said, sure. So we went on, and Stretch was going through a bunch of samples and stuff like that. And they actually started discussing my remix of Keep Your Head Up. You know what I mean? Because when you find out, oh, man, you do the remix of Keep Your Head Up, that would, oh, man, it's love that. But I told them, I said, man, I actually did like 3 or 4 different remixes of Keep Your Head Up, and just gave all 4 of them to the record label, and then they picked that one. So I let them hear the different remixes I'd done for Keep Your Head Up, and they actually liked one in particular. They were like, wow, man, I love that remix. You got the sounds, and I had all the sounds I used for it. And so we used the sounds that I used for a different remix from the one that's on the maxi single of Keep Your Head Up to do the remix of Papa's song, the Old Dirty Bastard remix, which is, Stretch's remix of Papa's song. And so the record label loved my remix and loved Stretch's remix. And just, Tom Wally, who's the guy who I was talking to most about Tupac, he was the A&R person for I guess, hip-hop and R&B and Interscope at the time. He was just like, man, could you please keep working with these guys, man, and keep them away from the samples, man. So since Pac wanted me to work with him because of my ability to just he used to call me, his first nickname for me was MacGyver, because no matter what problems were going on in the studio, whether I was doing the beat or somebody else was doing the beat, I could kind of solve it and get the record done. So he liked me being there, whether I was producing or not. And then because Tom Wally at the record label liked me being there because I didn't use samples, everything just kind of worked out, I had the blessing from the record label and the blessing from the artist. So my goal became to, instead of them sampling somebody's record, that had been recorded before, the goal became for me to kind of find out what musical ideals Stretch and Pac had, and just play them and make them manifest, make them come to life. And so that's what I kind of did for a while. But what would end up happening is I would do that, and then kind of add my own parts to it, because they may come up with like a ideal for a bass line, or like a lot of times it was Stretch. Most of the times it was Stretch. I think only one time on the original version of Hennessy was it actually Pac actually playing like a little guitar part. But for the most part, it was Stretch. And usually he would like sample something and then get on my keyboard and play certain parts on it and of what he sampled, and then he would do what he did with the underground drum loops, and maybe play the 808, and then the rest of it, because I kind of knew what key it was, would be me, and that's usually like a deep bass part and some string parts. You hear that on like God Bless the Dead or Under Pressure, or a lot of songs that we worked on together. So that became kind of how we worked. Mostly it was me and Stretch, but Pac was always there to kind of approve or disapprove what we were doing, and it was just an everyday thing,
Does the version of Hennessy that you did, does that still exist somewhere?
I think one of the saddest aspects of what Tupac became is that I don't think anyone could have imagined And once he passed away, to be honest with you, his estate really, and in a sense, I always say I could kind of understand it, because the reality of the situation with this, Tupac signed a really, really bad record deal. He basically signed a. If you look at his records, you will see that he had a publishing company called Joshua's Dream that was actually administered by Interscope. It was Joshua's Dream / Interscope. And what that meant was, and first of all, the money, the business part of the music business is the publishing business. You are publishing music. You're publishing it and having it played on a radio station. You're publishing it and played live. You have sheet music for which you're publishing the sheet music, and people buy the sheet for it. So it is the publishing companies that collect the money and distribute the money both to the record labels and to the recording artists. So when you have a situation where, for example, most people, let's say this, I wrote a song with Keith Washington called Closer on his first album, and Warner Chappell Publishing came to me and offered me a publishing deal where they would collect 50% of my publishing in order to administer this, that, and the other. And that's the way the industry usually works as far as publishing. A publishing company will give you an advance. Usually it's, if they think you're going to be successful, it's a pretty hefty sum, maybe like $250,000. And they give you that money in exchange for 50% of the residuals that you receive from the song. You know what I mean? And so Warner Chappell, because it was just the one song on Keith Washington, didn't offer me a substantial amount of money for my publishing, so I didn't sell it to them. Tupac did kind of, but Warner Chappell is not the record label. Tupac actually sold his publishing to the record label, and therefore, every time we went into the studio, every time he cut a music video, and the initial advance and other advances that he received when he ran out of money were all counted against the money that he received on the back end. So that's. I can't even imagine, even the people at Interscope, because they were good people, Tom Wally, Jimmy Iovine, David Cohen, John McClain. Those are there are a lot of bad people, a lot of rip-off artists in the music industry. Then there are people who are good people. And those guys at Interscope, maybe because I knew them when they were at A&M. I don't know what it was, but they were really good to me and really honest to me. And it was sad that Tupac did. Well, he kind of did the same. And I talked to Mike. One of the co-owners of Ruthless Records about what happened with NWA, kind of representing Jerry Heller, and the bottom line was, when you get a recording contract, you're not supposed to just sign it. You get a recording contract, and you get an attorney to negotiate it, because what the record company hands is highly in their favor. And a lot of recording artists get real excited about having a recording contract with a major record label, and get real excited about getting the advance, whether it's $100,000, $200,000, and don't have the money to pay for an attorney, so they go, well, we're just going to sign it and turn it back in. And sadly, that's what WA did, from talking to the people who know Jerry Heller and I think Mike Klein, and that's what Tupac did. And in the end, when you don't get somebody to negotiate in your favor the contract, if you become very successful like NWA did and like Tupac did, but you signed a bad contract, it's really sort of an injustice to the people at the record label who gave you a contract and told you to go get an attorney to negotiate your aspect of it. Because record labels generally don't sign artists that they don't believe are going to make money and make a lot of records. So you have the power to negotiate the contract more in favor. But if you just get excited and sign it without getting somebody to negotiate it in your favor, and then you blow up and get big and start making a lot of money, but you signed a contract that basically signs so much of your money over to the record label, that's not their fault. That's not Jerry Heller's fault. That's not Jimmy Iovine's fault. That's the artist's fault for not understanding the industry they were in, not understanding the process of getting a record deal and getting somebody negotiated on their behalf. And Tupac did that. So, and then he did it in a even worse way when he got in trouble and went to jail and signed with Death Row, because he just signed everything over. So in the end, what happened is after he died, his percentage of the money he would make from his music was almost non-existent. The guy he was always he made money from the movies thing, but the music thing he just signed too much away, you know. And so when he passed away, his estate decided that the best way for them to make money is to take the tracks that have been cut, a lot of them by me and other producers, but had not been released, and erase the original music so that the record label could not say that this track belonged to them, and therefore it was under agreement, the bad agreement with Tupac and just say these vehicles were all from demos, and therefore the estate could collect money and get paid from it without having to deal with the bad contracts that signed with both with Death Row and with Interscope. Now, so let's get back to answering your initial question. Songs like Hennessy, songs like and even sadly, You Still Down, Remember Me. I hear the original version Shock G did, and he actually called me one time and said, "Man, do you have a copy of that, a digital copy of that? Because I want to sue them because they erased that music." And the sad part about it is the engineer who they actually told to erase the music was my roommate. And he apologized to him. He said, "Man, I was in the studio and they told me to erase the music." And I was like, erase the original masters? That's a sin in the music industry. You don't erase the original masters. And he told me that he told them that what he could do, if they just wanted the vocals, like for a remix thing, is he could take the vocals off and put it on another piece of tape, but you don't erase the original masters. But they insisted that he erased the original masters. So a lot of that songs, like Hennessy, like just so many of the unreleased Tupac music, the original masters have been erased by his estate, sadly. So you may hear them, cassette copies of them that have been put out on YouTube. I've heard a lot of. I've heard some things like "Life So Hard" on a nigga, right? "Life So Hard." I don't even think that's ever been released, but I heard that on YouTube, and I was just like, wow, man. So to answer your question, the originals may be heard in a somewhat degraded form on YouTube, but sadly the estate, in order for them to make money, erase so many of the original Tupac fans.
That's insane. The original "Life So Hard" was based off a Led Zeppelin track called "Rain," correct?
Right. What Led Zeppelin had done, they were doing a Led Zeppelin tribute album. So they basically handed us Led Zeppelin's anthology. You know what I mean? And said, you guys do whatever you want to do with this. But what they were kind of hoping is that Pac would do with one of their songs what Run DMC had done with "Walk This Way." You know what I mean? And Run DMC had basically rapped the lyrics to "Walk This Way" with the same beat. So they were kind of hoping Pac would do that. But instead, I don't know, I sampled Kashmir. How could you not do Kashmir? That's a unbelievable beat. And but Stretch liked Rain, so I sampled Rain and played it and played some parts on it. I don't know. They thought it was kind of corny. I don't know, but I like it, especially a little horn up there for the hook. But the amazing part was that Snoop Dogg was in the studio that day too.
Hey, real quick, I'm not trying to interrupt you, but you're cutting up a little bit.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. I didn't catch that last part at all. What you were talking about. You said that Run DMC had did a similar song, and it just got real low. I apologize. I just didn't hear it.
Oh, Run DMC, when they did "Walk This Way" by Aerosmith, and Led Zeppelin was hoping that Tupac would take a Led Zeppelin song and kind of sample it and do with a Led Zeppelin song what Run DMC had done with Aerosmith's "Walk This Way." So that's why they gave us the anthology and said you just use any Led Zeppelin track. But they ended up not using any of it. And Pac actually rapped 3 different songs to that Rain track. He rapped "Wonder Why They Call You Bitch," "Life So Hard," which was never released. And then when they said, no, we want you to rap a Led Zeppelin, some Led Zeppelin lyrics. This is a Led Zeppelin tribute album, so we want you to kind of, do that. He just did a freestyle that was just unbelievable. Because he was just like, I can't do it. He couldn't find a Led Zeppelin song where he wanted to rap the lyrics to a Led Zeppelin beat, you know what I mean? So those end up being erased. Well, at least they erased that Rain track. I don't know where they got it, and then you hear a different beat underneath. Wonder Why They Call You Bitch,
Now, I'm sorry to make you repeat yourself, but you were saying that the original idea was like a Kashmir type of song, but it was Stretch was the one who liked the Led Zeppelin Rain song.
Right. See, that it's kind of like the people who did most of the music was me and Stretch and Pop. We kind of like bounced off each other. You know what I mean? In other words, like Street Fame on the Thug Life album. I basically had done a track that for me it was kind of like I thought it was because I was doing hip hop and really back then not a lot of people seemed to respect or like hip hop, so they would just hand it to me. I actually supervised the mix of Back on the Block with Quincy Jones, and it was actually a title track to Quincy Jones' album. And when they asked me to come in there and kind of supervise the mix, because I kind of knew hip hop and stuff, it amazed me. You know, I was like, I was expecting something different. Let me put it that way. And so I kind of in my head kind of thought that the track that I did for that ended up being Street Fame was kind of what I expected to hear Back on the Block to be. You know what I mean? Because Quincy Jones has scored so many movies and stuff, and I just thought it would be something that would sound more like a movie soundtrack type of, you know, sort of gangster vibe. I really didn't get that from the beat from Back on the Block when I was working on it. Well, to me, I was just tripping that I got to work with Bruce Sweeteen. But when actually that song was chosen for the Thug Life album, me and Stretch had sat with my equipment in a hotel room working on a number of beats and waiting for Pac to come in and see which ones he liked. And so, for example, the particular day when Street Fame was chosen, I had sampled the beginning of Marvin Gaye's Flying High in the Friendly Sky. And Stretch had sampled a Curtis Mayfield song that ended up being Stay True. You know, on the Thug Life album. And so when I kind of played the track with Street Fame and then Pac like that, Stretch for the hook just played this boom down, 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 boom down. He played that part over the beat I did. And so it was kind of like the way we worked. It was, we were like co-producing, but it was almost like all three of us, because we would all three sit there and say we like this, we didn't like this. A lot of times I'd play a bunch of parts like over like an ideal that Stretch had, and it would come out. You know what I mean? In other words, a lot of times like keyboard parts, the main like keyboard part would be something Stretch would come up with, and then because I knew the keys and could play, I would play the bass part and the string parts, and then Stretch would put a drum loop on it, like Under Pressure, or you know, or God Bless the Dead, or it was like this collaboration going on. You see what I'm saying? So as far as the collaboration on Wonder Why They Call You Bitch and Life's So Hard, when they gave us Led Zeppelin's collection, I wanted to do Kashmir. I did a track for Kashmir. You know what I mean? I was like, this is if there was ever a Led Zeppelin track that could be rapped to, this is the most powerful, fucking hardcore, You know what I mean? But
yes, I agree with you. And you see, maybe 10 years later, Puffy did it.
Yeah,
for the Godzilla soundtrack. He sampled that Kashmir beat.
Yeah. But Stretch liked Rain, so I just sampled listen to a section of Rain that could be used and played bass and drums. A lot of times we would just like a track and I would just do it, but I would never, you never know what people are going to like or what people are not going to like. But that was Stretch's preference to use that track. You know what I mean? And so they would just say, oh, I like that track. And then it would be my job to loop it up and put drums under it. And that particular track, they just didn't, sometimes they were into doing the music, sometimes they won't. Mostly while I was doing the music, they would do the raps. But because of what happened with his music, I just kind of made a policy to myself to never lie or front about who did what and whose idea was what and what, you know what I mean? So in that particular track, it was Stretch's idea to use that. And on the original Hennessy, Tupac actually sat down on the keyboard and played a part. And everything that happened, I try to just keep it 100, you know what I mean? Because there's been a lot of lies and a lot of people claiming they did stuff they didn't do and a lot of just craziness. And Pac became so big that I just look at people and go, man, isn't somebody interested in just telling the truth of what happened instead of just trying to take credit for things they didn't do and things they weren't involved with in order to just be on the bandwagon or because the public doesn't really know the truth? And then I guess because I did work with him so much and was involved with so much of the music, I guess it's beneficial for me to tell the truth. Then, and maybe that's the reason why I adapted. I don't know, man. But in all honesty, yeah, that's what happened. I wanted to do Kashmir. You know what I mean? I did the beat and everything with Rain, and they loved it and they rapped over it and everything. But that was Stretch's idea to do that.
Now, you brought up Under Pressure. There's a kind of a funny story about that song. That wasn't supposed to be on the Thug Life album, correct?
Right. The day that they were supposed to, finish, master the Thug Life album and turn it in, the song that was supposed to be on there was Running from the Police. And later they put out with, of course, different tracks that they erased the original and Eminem produced it, and they just took everybody else's rap off and just put Pac and Biggie's rap on there. But it was actually the entire Thug Life on the original Running from the Police. But in the beginning of it, there was this little 11-year-old rapper named Vicious of the original version. And he just kept saying, I am a gangster, papa, papa, I am a gangster. And everybody was like, oh, my God. Dan Quayle had already kind of, back when you really criticized Pac and you criticized rap. But with a little 11-year-old kid saying that so convincingly, the record label was like, no, we can't put that out, And so, Stretch called me and said, man, we need to go to Echo Sound, man. They're saying they can't put Running from the Police on the Thug Life album, which was sad because at the time when the Thug Life album was finished and about to come out, Biggie really was a member of Thug Life, basically the word that came down to me was when it came down to deciding who the members of Thug Life were going to be, the kind of joke was that, you know, Biggie was as wide as he was tall. He had one eye that kind of went one way and another eye that went the other way. And, you know what I mean? He just wasn't a very aesthetic person for the videos. And so they really Puff Daddy over at Bad Boy Records, you know, he had success with Craig Mack, who also wasn't a very aesthetic rapper. He had a bunch of, looked like he had a really bad acne problem, and it wasn't, you know what I mean? So maybe send him over there, and, you know, it was jokingly called Ugly Boy Records, and all of this stuff. And for me, it was just like, wow, man, because I've always thought Biggie was an incredible rapper, you know what I mean? And long before there was beef or problems or anything like that, those guys were friends, and Biggie was just like a, whew, you know what I mean, dope-ass rapper. So Running from the Police was supposed to be the last song on the Thug Life album. But again, me, Stretch, and Pac just went into Echo Sound Studios there near Glendale, and they kind of, you know, they was like, okay, we got to do this. It's 3 o'clock now. You know what I mean? We got to have this turned in by 5 so the record be mastered. So I just kind of came up with the beat and started playing bass on it and the string parts on it, and tried to do the type of music that I knew that Stretch and Pac liked rap, because, you know, he'd done so much of it. And they just wrote their raps and recited it and just did dropouts. And unbelievably, it was 45 minutes later. It was like, it's 3:45, man. We done. We did this song in 45 minutes. You know what I mean? And I guess that's a testimony to, you know, when you work with some guys every day, you know what I mean, for a long time, you know, you kind of get the niche of what they like and how they feel and the feel of the music and everything. And so that always, I mean, that was for the rest of the time when we hung out with each other. That was always the big joke. And we did that song in 45 minutes, less than an hour. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, it was like we was a team. I guess to Tupac, he called him and Stretch thug music, you know. So yeah, that was for us, and the record label liked the song so much that they were going to name the Thug Life album Under Pressure, but they went with Volume 1 instead. Yeah, that was, you know, it's kind of sad for me because a lot of Pac's music was just me, him, and Stretch, or just me and Stretch, you know what I mean? And both of those guys even got killed, and it for me, you know, I don't know how it's supposed to feel, but it's very painful, a lot, especially for the first 4 years after Pac died. For me, it was a very painful time because, you know, these guys, I don't understand. I still ask people, what was it about it that makes it so, you know, such a phenomenon that people just love it so much? I don't get it, because to me it's just pain. They're two guys who, first of all, like everybody else who comes to Hollywood to do music, I kind of, you know, wanted to be a record producer, but I never dreamed that it would become that Pac or anything I worked on musically would become, you know, seems like everlasting. You know what I mean? And the reason that happened is because Tupac believed in me. You know what I mean? So it's extremely sad for me, at least it was for the first few years, every time I would hear his voice or see a picture of him on somebody's T-shirt or on a poster or something like that, because here's a guy who took me, just a dance remixer. It wasn't really, it wrote one song on Keith Washington, and that's it, and believed in me and wanted me doing his music, and he became the greatest at doing this stuff. You know what I mean? And kind of made me into somebody in the music industry. And so it's an incredible honor, and it's an incredibly great thing for somebody to do for you. You know what I mean? And for him to die, it's tough, especially the way he died. And the fact that it was most of that stuff that I was doing with Stretch, and for him to get killed too, it's just for years, a very, very painful experience. Man. Just thinking about Pac. Now I'm, you know, we're all gonna die someday. You know what I mean? If you're gonna die, you might as well die. You might as well leave something behind in this life, and the pain is kind of soothed by the fact that you know, Pac just became just absolute legend. You know what I mean? And that eases the pain. But for the first few years, man, it's hard. I mean, me and Pac and Stretch spent so many times together working on some music, not knowing what it would become, and the fact that it became so incredible, and the fact that they became such great legends and everything like that. It's the only thing that puts a smile on my face when I really think about the loss of two great friends. You know what I mean? Believed in me, and we spent like over a year together almost every day, just doing music and going to movies and drinking and you know, partying in clubs and just living it was a great time. You know, it was a great time until all the drama came.
Some people have said that Tupac was obsessed with death, that he would talk about it a lot. You spent, like you said, a year with him, going from, you know, hotel room to studio. Was he obsessed with his own mortality?
Well, you become obsessed with death when known killer threatens to kill you. You know what I mean? I don't think he was obsessed with it. I think he was scared. You know, he signed a really bad record deal. And when his music started blowing up, he wasn't seeing money. And like I said, just like NWA, he was mad at the record label, but he really shouldn't have been mad at the record label. You signed the contract. You signed that contract. And as a credit to him, he realized, you know, and that, you know, he signed a bad contract. You know, my advice to him was to do what Janet Jackson did. Just live out your contract. Make great music. Let them build you up. And then when it's time to renegotiate, when Janet Jackson got off of A&M Records and went to Virgin Records, they advanced her $13 million. And that's kind of like what I told them. I said, I mean, when recording artists first come in the music industry, you don't know how this game is played. You don't know anything about it. You're so happy to get that advance. You're so happy to get some money. You're so happy to be signed to it. You're so happy to maybe become famous that maybe you will make that mistake. Look at it like paying your dues, you know. Janet Jackson paid her dues with Control. She didn't make much. She signed a really bad contract. But she kept putting out great music. And then when the contract was over, and it was because she had proven herself to be valuable, they gave her $13 million. And that's kind of like what I told Pac. Hey, Pac, man, just keep making great music, Interscope. And when your contract is up, you'll be worth so much money they'll give you, $10, $20 million, man, and you'll get it all back. You'll get the money, but you signed it back. But what happens is he started hanging out with some gangsters, and they started giving him the old, well, I'll get your money for you. And it's like, okay, so you're going to gangster, the people at Interscope and Jimmy Iovine, and I don't think it's going to work, man. No, I really don't. But he believed that hype, and he listened to them, and he started hanging with them, and then he kind of realized that it probably wouldn't work. So he changed his mind, and he didn't want those guys managing him. You know what I mean? So he said, nah, I think I'll just. He really did. As his credit, he really did want to just, keep doing music and live out his contract and then go forward. But the sad part about it is the guys that wanted to manage him. They had given him some jewelry, some really expensive jewelry to kind of make him look, to show them what he would look like and how he'd be walking around if they were managing him and stuff. But the way they gave it to him was simply this. They pulled him tail because his Pac didn't have no money, and he had the credit to really walk around with a $40,000 ring and this, that, and the other. They kind of pulled some strings and had the guy just, let him have it and let him kind of make payments on it and this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? But when he told this guy, hey man, I don't want you guys managing me. I think I just live out my contract and stuff. They was like, well, give us the ring back then, man. We pulled some strings to get you that ring so that you could be walking around looking like you making some money because your music is all successful. But if you ain't gonna, let us work with you, then give us the ring back. It's like, man, no, I'm not giving the ring back because, even though y'all hooked me up with it, I'm still making payments on this ring, so I have it. And gangsters was just like, hey, you know what I mean? That is a symbol of you working with us. You know what I mean? So if you ain't gonna work with us, then we don't care how it rains or what happens. You don't have to give it up, so. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, man, I ain't giving back the ring. And it was like, man, dude, check this out. Man, we're real gangsters. We're studio gangsters. Get back the ring. And Pac basically was like, you know what I mean? Well, if I'm a studio gangster, you're a groupie. So gangster basically told him, okay, I'm going to show you a groupie. I'm going to show you a groupie. So everybody knew what that gangster meant. He said, I'm going to show you. Pac knew what it meant. So he came back to L.A. Everybody said, man, stay in L.A., man. Gangsters kind of run certain territories. So New York is their territory. You stay out here in Los Angeles, you won't have any problems. You'll just be all right. Just stay away from it. In conversations with Pac, I'll be honest with you. He knew that he wasn't a gangster, but at the same time, he also knew that whatever he was because his fans perceived him to be so. They perceived him to be a gangster. And being called a studio gangster offended him greatly and hurt him greatly. And so he wanted to stand up and man up to this gangster, just so he wouldn't let down his fans. So it was really a sad situation because, I mean, he was doing incredible things to show that he would bow down to no man. So needless to say, him trying to show that he wasn't scared and everything, he went to New York. Everybody was saying, just stay in L.A. Yeah, but even here in Hollywood, I mean, one time we were at, the record label would rent him an apartment and rent Stretch and Mo an apartment downstairs, and I had my own apartment, but I would come bring my equipment over there to work on music and, to try to I would come to their hotel rooms and apartments to work on music to try to keep the studio costs down, because every minute that we spend in the studio would come out of pocket. And I told him, I said, man, basically we're working on these beats, and all we're doing is using the studio for is speakers. Well, I have my own portable set of speakers that we can use my equipment with and work on the new beats at the apartment, and then go to the studio to keep the cost down. All of this is cross-collateralized against your publishing, against your money. So, Pac had an apartment on the 3rd floor, and Stretch and Mo and me, I would bring my equipment to their apartment on the 2nd floor, and Pac would walk from the 3rd floor to the 2nd floor with a bulletproof vest on, in Los Angeles. Like, wow, man, are you really that scared? He was that scared because he knew if he thought these guys were big time enough to muscle, major record company executives and multi-millionaires, he knew they could get at him. Was he obsessed with death? No, he was scared because he had tried to man up and yoke up and basically disrespected a real gangster, a real known killer. And he was scared that the guy was going to kill him. He was scared that when the guy said, "I'm going to shoot you," that means the hit out on him. That's what I did.
That's a very deep perspective I've never heard before. After all these years, I mean, there's so many stories out there. The movie came out. What do you think people's biggest misconception of Tupac is? Is it the gangster image?
I don't know. There's so many different type of misconceptions, but I think God bless the dead.
Go ahead.
I think I was talking about God bless the dead.
Yeah. Like I said, I wasn't going to make you repeat none of that. I have it. But yes, I guess the question where we left off was I was asking you if all these years later what people got wrong about Tupac was it the gangster image, and you were telling me about God bless the dead.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's so many different type of misconceptions, but that, to me, that song was just, it was weird to me because people kept saying Tupac is still alive because of that song. Because in the beginning it goes, "Rest in peace to my homie Biggie Small." Now, usually when we went to do music, Stretch would call me and say, "Hey, Pops, I'm in the studio here, I'm in the studio there." But on God Bless the Dead, Pac actually called me and said, "Hey, one of Stretch's homies from Springfield Holics crew got killed. He was coming out of a liquor store, and 3 people who had beef with him seen him. And instead of running, he wanted to squab with them, all 3 of them, and they were still scared of me, 3 against 1. So they just shot him, and Stretch was really messed up. So we want to do a song as a tribute to him. And it could come again, it was Echo Sound. So it was Echo Sound, and it was just, Stretch just, man, he really was out of it, And so they did a thing. They rolled the blunts and started drinking Hennessy, and Stretch did that. He took the sample, and then like I usually do, I started playing the bass to kind of go with it, and the string parts over it, and drum loops and stuff. And they started writing it as a tribute to Stretch's friend that Pac had met him and hung out with him. You know what I mean? But that's what that song was all about, and it was just like, it's really a sad moment. I kind of didn't understand it and didn't think much of it. I mean, they never really even released the song. It was just like a tribute to a friend of Stretch's that died, But then I started hearing how that's the proof that Tupac was still alive, because how could he say rest in peace to Biggie Smalls when Pac died before Biggie? You know what I mean? So that's one of the misconceptions. I think that another misconception of Tupac is that he was a gangster. My perspective with Tupac is that I used to kind of tell him, man, why you do all of this stuff, man? We're Hootie and the Blowfish. There was a group out at the time called Hootie and the Blowfish. And I was like, man, all we do is stay in fancy hotels, go party at the Roxy, and eat good food, and go to the studio and do music, and go to the movies sometimes, man. We ain't pimping no hoes, we ain't selling no drugs. We Hootie and the Blowfish, what is, you know what I mean? This is, so to me, I kind of watched Pac become a gangster. And what made him become that was when he got shot in New York, when he went to jail, and just messed up stuff happened, and he just came out mad, really angry. I think the thing that really just turned him into just a very angry and vicious person. I heard we're sitting around, and there was a news report that Pac was in the infirmary, and he had 16 stitches. And so I went to Mo Preen. I was like, man, what happened? What happened? He was like, man, I told him. Mo was like, man, I told him, man, don't go up in the cell with him. I'm going to be smoking weed with them dudes, So basically what happened is and it's messed up, but it was like, I went to Hawthorne to a friend of ours, Country's apartment, where Stretch came in town. Stretch was working, and Stretch was just like, yo man, shit is f***ed up, dog, because Pocket did some kind of interview while he was in jail. I guess it was in the event of my demise interview for Vibe magazine. And he named names. You know what I mean? He was in there naming names in this interview. He had been charged with rape, but it wasn't him alone. He really wasn't charged with rape. He was conspiracy to commit rape. Basically, he was in a hotel room. The people who wanted to, you told him, don't go to New York, man, but he went to New York. Some chick had, gave him a job on the dance floor,
And you guys found out he was in New York, found out what hotel room he was in, came to his hotel room, called the chick, she came over and, you know what I mean? She came to the room. They called her. They was like, Pop wants you to come to this hotel room. She came to the hotel room. When she walked in, they started, like, grabbing her and stuff. And Pac was scared of the dudes. So he took the opportunity to bolt, to leave the room. And she was mad at him. She was angry at him for not protecting her from these gangsters. You know what I mean? So they had connections and stuff. They got off. He was the one doing time. So he was mad about that, And so he did an interview where he named the names of the guys who were in the room with, so they was like, basically we was going to leave him alone, man. You know what I mean? He gave back the ring. You know what I mean? One way or another, they're going to get the ring back. So they got the ring back, because in the studio incident in New York, they got their ring back, So it was like they was just going to leave. That was it. There wasn't nothing else to it. But he going to get in he did what they call dry snitching. You know what I mean? In other words, he didn't go to police and say, these are the guys. He went to Vibe magazine and did an interview calling, if anybody mind, I don't want to do nobody else's time, blah, 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 and named the names of the guys that he was doing time for. And those guys that called Stretch and was like, yo, man, we was through with Pac, man. We got the ring back, whatever, you know what I mean? But now he done gone and he done named our names in magazines and stuff, yo. You know what I'm saying? We had to, and they was like, we had to pay money to get our name out the magazine. You know what I'm saying? So now we're going to, you know what I mean? So they basically they set him up in jail. They had some people offer, 3 dudes offered us some weed, going to sell, smoke some weed, and went to sell, smoke some weed, and they got him. And it f***ed him up, yo. You know what I'm saying? And so after that, it was just like, he was just like, he'd do anything to get out of there. And everybody was mad, and, she was like, well, who gonna lie for him? Everybody gonna lie for you, man. Thug life. And it was so sad, man, because it was like, okay, so Pac is not a blood, Pac is not a Crip, he's not no gangster, yo. He has no ties to any gang. To be a gangster, the part of the word is gang. What gang? He's not a blood, he's not a Crip, he's not a Thug Life is not a gang. Thug Life is a music group. And to just watch those guys just sit there and go, man, I do music with Pac, but, I'm not trying to ride on him. You know what I mean? It was sad. So nobody had Pac's back, And he was just trying to get people to ride, trying to get people to do that, and he was just so f***ed up, yo. And the record label was just like, man, he got beef with some real gangsters, so he needs somebody to have that. So, Suge got the Bloods, over there, his back. So let's go on Death Row over there with Suge, and at least he has some people that'll really ride for him, because Thug Life ain't gonna ride for him. You know what I'm saying? So, since Suge, Suge put up $750,000, Interscope put up $750,000, his bill was $1.5 million. They bailed him out. He signed everything over to Death Row, and he went out and just went so. I mean, he was so fucking happy to actually have some motherfuckers that would really ride for him. And he just was down. He was down. He was a gangster. He was ready to do whatever, yo. He was ready. He was doing all the things that I said that he wasn't doing, that we was Hootie and the Blowfish. He wasn't Hootie and the Blowfish no more. You know what I mean? And you can see, prime example, he got killed not by Biggie. He got killed, and it's on tape. He's on tape, beaten up, being the first one to roll up and lay hands on a killer Crip. You know what I mean? On tape in Vegas, because they had snatched some death row chains from some Bloods when they outnumbered some Crips in the Plaza Mall. They had snatched some chains from them. So they seen them there in Vegas. They said, oh, there he is. They're the dudes who snatched the chains. So he ran up on him, and Pac's the first one to ride on him and to take flight on him and start punching him because he was a G. He was ready to put in work. At age 25, he got down with gangbanging. So I say that most of the time I knew him, most of the time he was putting out records, he wasn't a gangster. But once that shit happened to him, once he got shot, once he got up in prison, once he came out, all that, he was a G. He was the first to ride. He was putting it down. And that's why when he did all that stuff on death row, all that stuff was coming from the perspective of a fresh, new recruit to gang banging. You know what I mean? So that's the, to me, that's the, I mean, I don't know how much realer I can get about the misconceptions and the reality of what happened with Tupac Shakur. But I love that man, yo, because he believed in me and he let me do his music and he told everybody I was in charge of his music, and I did so much of his music and I made so much money throughout man, it's been ridiculous for me, the money, but the money, this don't really even compare. I would rather be broke and still doing music with Pac today, and Stretch today, and Yacht, and Sight, and you know what I mean, all them dudes in Thug Life, you know what I mean? We've had our falling out. Basically, it's because Tupac's estate stole so much money from me, man. You know what I mean? And it made me bitter and it hurt me. You know what I mean? Because he's supposed to be Black Panthers, and how can a Black Panther steal from a black man? And I went through all of that feeling of, the hypocrisy of it, and feeling hurt and let down and pointed in my people. You know what I mean? And here it is, the people who are supposed to be ripping you off, Jimmy Iovine, David Cohen, and the people, they was good to me. They had my back. They's the reason I got paid. They stood up for me when these guys were just trying to steal, because it's just like, we know Duane was sitting there doing all that music. You know what I mean? And there were times they didn't even want to talk to Pac or Stretch and none of those guys. They would talk to me and let me talk to them. You know what I'm saying? So the whole thing was real painful, man. But if there's things that was misconceived about Pac, the misconceptions of Pac is that, no, the whole time he was rapping a lot of that gangster stuff, he was not a gangster. You know what I mean? But once he came out of prison and got on death row, he was a hardcore recruit. And so, those are and a lot like his mission, and a lot of the things like that, the God Bless the Dead being about Biggie Smalls and Tupac still being alive. If Tupac was still alive, I'd be handing him the phone right now, man. You know what I'm saying? My homie's gone, my friend is gone. I miss him like a mug because he believed in me. I did some things, music since he's gone. I did like Vibe Versus for Vibe magazine a little while back, and that was a big, huge hip hop contest. Just unbelievable. I was just amazed at the success of that. But there's been a lot of painful things that happened. A lot of painful things that happened to a lot of people who tried to. Sadly, Tupac's estate has unbeknownst to me, has been trying to blacklist me because they don't want me telling the truth, because they know that I'm going to tell the truth because it's beneficial to me, and they just didn't want me out because I would sue them. And people say that they owe me like $30 million and all this stuff like that, man. I don't know, man. For me, I just miss my friend. I miss doing music. I love doing music. He believed in me. The music that we did would come out, you know what I mean, and be big. So, and when you dream of doing music, when you're a musician, and you never imagined it would come true, but it is. You're happy as hell, and just like he, yoked up on all this gangster stuff because he didn't want to let down his fans. You know what I mean? I don't want to let down the fans. I want to keep doing music with them because I've done music with a lot of people, but nobody else I've done music with has had that phenomenal level of success. You know what I mean? So I don't look at it as me because I've done music with, Boys and Men and Jody Wiley, Keith Washington, and a bunch of unknown people. I've done music with a lot of people. None of them got anywhere near where Pac did. You know what I mean? So I look at it as all Pac and not me because I was lucky, blessed enough to be at the right place at the right time to be able to work with that brother, and because that brother believed in me as a record producer, good things happen for me and my music, but it's all on him. You know what I mean? It's all because of who he was and the magic of the things he said and the greatness of his ability to rap. You know what I mean? I don't even look at it like me. You know what I'm saying?
Do you have time for one more?
Sure.
I wanted to ask you about what you're gonna do.
What you gonna do?
Yeah, it was originally called Fright Night, but now what you gonna do? That song.
No. It was originally What You Gonna Do. It was originally. I told Pac, like I said, man, for me, when Pac was locked up, he was like, he told Syke and Mo to come see me and ask me what I think he should do about signing the death row. Okay? And Suge had a reputation of slapping people around. You know what I mean? He had the Bloods behind him. And my thing was like, yo, man, check this out, yo. He had beef, this gangster in New York, and then nobody ride for him, and nobody have his back, yo. So why would he sign with a gangster out here in Los Angeles? Who knows now? Ain't nobody got this man's back. You know what I mean? Y'all didn't ride for him. Thug Life didn't ride for him. He wasn't a blood. He wasn't a crip. Didn't nobody ride for him. So why? I'm not with this pretend to be gangster stuff. You know what I mean? So I don't want to go over the death row. I don't want to be a part of that. I really don't. Because I'm a soldier, man. You know what I'm saying? You smack me, and somebody's gonna get up, yo. So I don't want to be a part of it because this ain't my life, yo. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to, ain't no future in the front. I'm not trying to front like I'm no gangster. You know what I mean? So the bottom line is this. I didn't want to go over there. But I didn't go over there, and then I found the reality of without working on Pac. Who the fuck am I in the music industry? You know what I mean? So I went broke. I was broke. I was living in the projects broke with no lights on, okay? And Pac heard about it, like over on death row, and he called me himself. I was like, man, come work with me, man. I'll get you a house, man. I'll get you a car. I'll get you everything, man. Come work on with me, man. I heard about how you doing, man. Come on, man. You know? And so I said, okay. Suge wasn't the person I thought he was. He wasn't. Suge really wasn't as bad a dude as people said he was. He was giving people credit for their music and everything, man. You know what I mean? He paid $50,000 to make sure that I got credit on that for what you're gonna do. Sure, wasn't the bad person people think he was. You know what I mean? Not at all, man. It's crazy, but it's true. He clowned a lot for a reputation. You know what I mean? But he wasn't that bad of a dude. You know what I mean? And he was giving people credit for their music. You know what I mean? So at least that's the way he treated Pac. Maybe he just loved Pac. I guess he had love for me too, man. Because see, they was trying to they were trying to get me to say, okay, we really not trying to steal from you, man. Feel bad about it. I guess eventually, his mom's Black Panther, she felt bad about it. Because, everybody was telling me Duane was there. You know what I mean? He was there for your son doing all this music, man. I just taking all kind of credit and money from him. You know? So they was just like, okay, we don't want to give Suge credit for it. You know what I mean? But we'll give you credit for it. Just say that you did not do what you're going to do on death row. I'm like, I'm not going to lie, yo. I'm just not. I'm not going to lie about this. I can't stand this. I cannot believe that y'all put out an album called Are You Still Down, Remember Me? And Shock G, if it wasn't for Shock G, Tupac would not even be in the music industry because Shock G brought him in. And y'all going to erase Shock G's music and name an album after it and not give him no money or credit for it. I'm not with all this lying, and I'm definitely not with the abomination of erasing the original masters of now the greatest rapper of all time, man. You know what I mean? So I'm not joining in with the lies. I did a song called What You Gonna Do with Tupac at Death Row with Donna Hunter, a.k.a. I forgot what her rap name was.
Storm.
Storm, yeah. Yeah, it was with them. You know what I mean? And where Fright Night came from, I've never even heard Fright Night yet. You know what I mean? Malcolm, aka Edie Amin, he's me and him is definitely still cool. I talk to him every once in a while about all of this stuff, man. And I don't know what was happening. I think it was just another one of those things where. They were trying to, as far as Tupac concerned, was trying to get all the money off of that. But they knew I had done the track, and they liked the track. So instead of putting it on the Tupac album, they put some other track underneath the lyrics that was on What You Gonna Do, took Storm off of it, and was going to use Fright Night for Outlaws album or Outlaws records. You know what I mean? Because basically it was me working on when they first started, when they were Dramacidal. You know what I mean? But I don't know, man. I have never heard Fright Night, and What You Gonna Do was What You Gonna Do. You know what I mean? It was not Fright Night. Maybe one day I'll find it and listen to it. All of this stuff is just so weird, messed up, and painful to me, man. But in the end, I mean, that's life, man. Life shows up. People, for ego purposes, for money purposes, they gonna steal from you. They gonna rip you off. And people say it's Hollywood. It ain't Hollywood. It's greed. You know what I mean? It happens all kind of people do it in all kind of ways for different reasons. The way I look at it, a lot of it is so sad. You know what I mean? But that's life. I am happy that my friends who got killed are absolute, undeniable legends in the music industry. I'm happy. Even though I don't have $30 million like they say they owe me, I got a lot of money. You know what I mean? Over the years, they paid me a whole bunch of money, bro. I'm not tripping. You know what I mean? I was like, every year I go, how long is this going to go on? You know what I mean? Man, yo. But, I've been through some hard times, but that's my fault. I didn't pay my taxes. You know what I'm saying? That's my fault. So I'm not tripping on none of it as far as, what happened with me and everything. That's life. So all in all, man, Tupac was the coolest guy. He was. I put it to you like this, man, and this is Tupac in a nutshell to me. I had a friend who had some big bosoms, okay? And she told me that if I took her to the studio with Pop, that she was going to put his head in between those big bosoms and roll it around, right? So I took her to the studio. Okay. I took her to the studio, right? And Pac was in one of the lounges watching TV, and she crept on in the lounge and got on the side of the couch and was trying to ease on over to him, right? And instead of getting with her, Pac comes in the studio where I am working on the music, and he goes, "Hey, man, I just want to let you know, man, your girl is stalking me, man. She's just chasing me all around trying to get at me and everything like that." And I thought, man, that is so cool and real. Because a lot of is just, they would try to, your girl trying to sneak around and get them behind their back, they would be with it and keep a secret and laugh at you and clown you, and they ain't real. You know what I mean? Pac was real. He was a good friend. He was a great rapper. He believed in everything, man. That dude was as incredible as a person as he was talent, an artist. You know what I mean? I miss that dude, man. I mean, really, really, I miss Pac, man, because of how much he believed in me. And because all of the terrible things that had happened with all that music that I did with him, that never would have happened if he was still alive. You know what I mean? Never would have happened. You know what I mean? But that's life. I could complain, but really, man, I understand this life. I understand now that people are like that and that the world is like that. But in the end, man, it was a blessing. It was a true blessing having been his friend and his producer. A true blessing. And it's been blessing me every day of my life ever since.
This is a Jmix exclusive.
Whatever, shut up.
Yeah.